Shalom. I've been doing some research on the lunar eclipse and was just going to ask the question, does the shadow of the Earth cause a lunar eclipse? Does eclipse mean what we believe it does? If we look back at etymology, going back to circa 1300s, also the 12th century, we have the Latin word eclipsis and the Greek word eclipsis. That means an eclipse, an abandonment, literally a failing, forsaking. To forsake a usual place, fail to appear, be eclipsed. So nowhere do I see where it's talking about eclipsing of a sun or the moon. Just make note of that. Now, I also looked in the BibleHub.com and I searched eclipse. I found 5 Hebrew Strong's numbers that had a relationship to the word eclipse. Yet none of these verses, you can do your own research. You look up these Strong's numbers and find out where they're at. And none of these had any association with a darkening of the sun or the moon. Also in the Greek, we can see here that I found one Greek Strong's number, 1587, that had a relationship to the word eclipse. If you look at the definition, it means to leave out, leave off, by implication to cease. Again, by those definitions, I don't see where that has a relationship of darkening, literally darkening the sun or the moon. If we looked up that Strong's number, we'll see here in the BibleHub.com, in the interlinear, it's written 4 times where the word eclipo is used, which that sounds like, a lot of our words come from Greek, so eclipo does sound like eclipse. So this would sound like it's possibly talking about eclipsing what we believe eclipse is of the sun or moon. But let's do some further investigation of each verse. Here, this verse in Luke 16:9, as you can see where it's highlighted, it means it fails. It's not talking about a darkening or something covering it up with a shadow. It don't even mention the sun or moon here. In Luke 22:32, again, the highlighted portion says may fail, where that word is used. Again, it's not talking about a darkening or a shadow of the sun or moon. We have Hebrews 1:12 that is highlighted, will never end. Again, that has no relationship of darkening or a shadow going over the moon or the sun. But then we get to Luke 23:45. In the interlinear, it says here the sun was darkened. So this is the first place where we're seeing anything as far as a light being darkened. So this possibly could be what this particular verse is talking about, an actual darkening of the moon. And at this point in time that this was happening, this would have been the 14th day of the month. So for the sun to be darkened, that meant usually if we see a solar eclipse, this is not a lunar eclipse, but a solar eclipse. The solar eclipse happens when the sun and moon are together, or when you have a dark moon. So that's the only time where the sun can be darkened, is actually at the same time that the moon is going through the phase of its dark moon. So for that to happen on the 14th, a clue would be that your month would start with a full lit moon, and it would cycle through approximately, I haven't investigated this completely, but on the 14th day in the afternoon, it's very possible that there could be a solar eclipse that this verse is speaking about here. I went to eSword and looked up the Greek Strong's number 1587, eclipo, and again, I found the verses Luke 16:9, Luke 22:32, and Hebrews 1:12, but I did not see Luke 23:45. So Luke 23:45, when we look at that Strong's number, we can see here that there's 8 verses that were found that use this word. Only in Luke 23:45 is it talking about something historically that had already occurred. All of these particular verses were written in the 1st century AD. So where it's talking about Luke 23:45, this was the event where the Messiah was killed. He was killed on the 14th day of the month. And the sun being darkened, that would mean it would have to be during a phase of a dark moon. So that could only occur if it was in the middle, toward the middle of the month, if the start of the month would be a full moon. We have Matthew 24:29 and Mark 13:24. This is speaking about the future of what the Messiah was speaking would happen to the Jewish nation there that he was speaking to. It does say that the sun was darkened, and then it does say the moon shall not give her light. So again, that could be associated with darkened, but in particular, it's talking here about the sun being darkened. The moon not giving her light could be very well, literally could be the dark moon. That's the only time that the sun shows to be covered up by something during that event would be during a dark moon period. Same thing in Mark 13:24. It's basically the same. Sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light. So again, I would think if that was a literal, that would be a solar eclipse. Again, there's some symbolic meaning here that I've come to find out over the last couple years. Won't go there today. But then we look at Romans and Ephesians, where Paul is writing to the Romans and the Ephesians and that audience there. And he's talking about where it's the word or darkened is used. It's talking about in one, the heart was darkened, the eyes were darkened in the next one, and then the understanding being darkened. So these are not talking about celestial lights as far as the sun or moon here. These are just talking about darkening of people's hearts, their eyes, and their understanding. Revelation 8 and Revelation 9 here. These particular events are, again, future events. This was written toward the end of the 1st century AD. It's speaking about a third part of the sun, moon, and stars would be darkened. So it's not totally darkened. It's just a third part of the sun, moon, and stars could be darkened. Again, that's something that literally, I don't think there's ever been anything recorded in history that literally happened like that. But if you look at the symbology of Revelation, you can very well get the gist that this has already happened. Revelation 9:2 is talking about the sun and the air were darkened. So again, it's talking about the sun, and then it's also talking about the air. So this was not be covering a lunar eclipse, or what we call a lunar eclipse today. If you look at the definition of Greek Strong's number 4654, it means to obscure, and that means literally or figuratively. So again, if we go back and we look at where the heart is darkened, that's not talking literally, it's talking figuratively in a figurative sense. Eyes being darkened, it's not talking about people going blind literally, it's talking about figuratively, they're going blind. And then the other one spoke about understanding. Again, it's not literally talking about an understanding being darkened, but it's talking figuratively that you're understanding. So the others, again, to obscure, the only ones where these words were used to even say anything about, especially the moon, would be in Revelation, where it talks about the third part of the moon would not show its light and would be darkened. So again, I don't think that would qualify for what we observed a couple days ago. If you look up the etymology for obscure, it means to cover something, cloud over. It also can mean it comes from Latin obscurare, to make dark, darken, obscure, uh, meaning to conceal from knowledge or observation. Again, to conceal from knowledge would not be in a literal sense of your understanding being darkened or your eyes being darkened. It would be more of symbolic what this obscure is speaking of. And then, of course, observation, that could be of a celestial light. So if you're looking at a celestial light and it becomes obscured from your view and it's darkened, then that very well it's covered over. It meets the description for obscure. So it looks like this word would be more of a sense of what happens during a solar eclipse. It gets obscured, and even during a lunar eclipse. So I would be willing to bet that the proper word here would be the one used for darkened instead of the one klypto or klippo, where it means for to fail or to never end. So again, study your words, go deeper into the words, and you kind of get a better understanding of what the scriptures are talking about when you dig deeper into the word. Now, as far as the lunar eclipse, I found out during my research there's a particular eclipse. It's called Selenelion that happens when the moon is above the horizon and the sun is appearing from the east at the same time. So there's eclipses that have been witnessed there where this has happened. This next page is off that particular NBC News web page where it talks about the Selenelion. And this is an image, or it was multiple exposures here where he took photos of a lunar eclipse during December the 10th, 2011. And as you can see, the moon is quite obscured. Now, this was in Los Alamos, New Mexico, and it says the sun was just about to rise. So that means it was just right at the horizon. As you can see, the background there, that the sky is already starting to light up from the light of the sun. So I've never witnessed the Selenelion myself personally, but I did do some research. A video here. The video is on YouTube. It's called The Lunar Eclipse at Sunrise. It says Selenelion viewed from Cahokia Mounds, it's in St. Louis area. Obviously, they call it cliffs. It's obviously higher, but if you see in the background there between the two power plants, you can see the moon, and it's already obscured at the top. And actually, this shot was after the sun appeared in the east. So the sun is showing above their visible horizon in this video, and then the moon is still showing that it's being darkened from the top down. So I beg the question, how did the physics work there? I'm going to put some links in the information box for you to do your own research, but I've seen enough information to show me to explain away that this is probably not the shadow of the earth coming, being cast from underneath the earth from the sun to the moon. I definitely don't believe that. So here's the and I'm going to start it here. It's about 4 minutes long, and just listen to this guy. This guy believes in a spinning globe Earth, and he's got his helper there. It's a lady friend or his wife or whoever, and but they do a great video here. This again is from Cahokia Mounds in the St. Louis, Illinois area. Here we go.
Am I on?
Yes.
Am I on?
Shush.
So it's December 10th, about 6:30 in the morning. It's about 18 degrees out here, and we're standing on top of Cahokia Mounds, just east of St. Louis. Behind me is a full moon, which will soon be going into a full lunar eclipse as it sets, kind of a rare experience, while at the same time behind us, the sun is already beginning to rise. So this could be a very interesting and beautiful experience. Oh, am I on? Okay. So it's about 6:55, and as you can see, we're getting a little bit brighter out here. You can see the shadow creeping across the moon. It's a little hard to see, I'm sure, in the camera, but from here we can see it nice and clearly. It's about a third of the way covered. The moon's starting to turn nice and orange. Over my right shoulder, you can see downtown St. Louis and the nice early morning sun, which is getting very bright on the eastern horizon behind us. Yeah, we'll get that in there again. So you can see it's practically day here, yet we still have the full moon out, which is slowly eclipsing. And it's still cold. Okay, so it's now about 7:04 a.m. and over my shoulder you probably cannot see anything, but through the stacks of the refinery back there, we can just barely make out a little bit of the moon left. It's about 2/3 the way covered with Earth's shadow, and it's turning a sort of pale orange, pinkish color. But with the bright morning sun coming up, there's not enough contrast to be able to see the moon there. We can still see it just a little bit. What I find very interesting is I was expecting the shadow to come upward across the moon as it would go down and it would pass into shadow, and actually it's going the other way around. The shadow, as the moon is here, the shadow is creeping down across the moon, even though the sun's coming up over here, and that must be because of the moon's rotation around the Earth. It's moving farther up, even though the sun's light is actually coming from over there. It's actually coming underneath the Earth. So if you imagine the sun is here, the Earth is here, and the moon is back here, and this light was coming under the Earth, but the moon must be rotating around even though we're turning, so it looks like the moon is going down. It's kind of an optical illusion. It's pretty cool. So the sun is scheduled to set at 7:08. I'm sorry, the sun will rise at 7:08. The moon is scheduled to set at 7:08. So exact same time, so we might actually catch a glimpse of both for a brief moment as the moon is disappearing. Okay, let's see, go ahead. You're on? Mm-hmm. We're on again. Well, it is now officially 7:08, and if you look behind us, the sun is just starting to peek up over the trees. We can't quite see the sun, and behind us, yeah, the moon has pretty much disappeared into eclipse, but otherwise it would be setting right now, but it has been fully eclipsed for just a few minutes, so it disappeared just a couple minutes ago. And you can just see a sliver of the sun through the trees there. You see it now? Can you see it in the camera? Zoom.
It's right. It's right there.
There's a tiny little sliver of brightness coming through the trees. The sun is peeking up, and that's of course exactly 180 degrees this direction, and 180 degrees the other direction from me is where the moon is. So they're in a perfect line. The moon being this way, the sun being that way. And if we drew a line from it to the Earth, to the moon, it would be a nice, perfect straight line. Of course, if it wasn't, they wouldn't be in line, and we wouldn't be having a lunar eclipse. So I think that's it. It's warmed up just a little bit. It's probably up to at least 20 degrees now. You can definitely see the sun coming up now if you want to get one last little shot of that. Just a little blip there. And that's it. That was our amazing experience of a sunrise and lunar eclipse at the same time. Good morning.
Okay, I went to a website to find the map coordinates for Cahokia Mounds State Historic Site, where this gentleman and his lady friend said they were. As you can see there, the blue location is where it was, outside of St. Louis. And the map coordinates, I got the latitude and longitude here. It's basically 38 degrees and 90 degrees longitude, 38 degrees latitude, 90 degrees longitude. Now, Stellarium, if you want to do your own research here, guys, Stellarium's a great tool to use. You can use it with on a Linux system, on a Mac system, on a Windows system, or you can actually go to a website, Stellarium website, and use it there. I went and put in the map coordinates, the latitude, longitude for Cahokia Mounds there, and as you can see, the red arrow up in the United States on the top left on the map, that's where it's showing there. And these are the images. I took these screenshots of these images on the stellarium on the same date, December the 10th, 2011, that the other, the NBC News website was talking about from Los Alamos, New Mexico, and then this other one close to St. Louis, Illinois. So this is from St. Louis, Illinois area. It's at 7 a.m. and 30 seconds. So you can see here the moon. Now this is imaginary horizon, the blue deal there, but it's showing the moon still above that imaginary horizon, and it's already has a shadow of something coming across it. Again, I just cannot believe that this is the moon coming up underneath, or the shadow of the earth, of the light from the sun coming underneath the earth, and then not only lighting up the moon, but also showing a shadow from underneath. Here's a shot of it with the atmosphere added in. It's the same time. Again, as you can see, the shadow is coming down from the top on the moon here. This is a zoomed out shot of it. Again, you can physically see the moon even at zoomed out on this particular, and this was with the atmosphere and the earth added in. And I just put in the ocean just because it gives a nice flat shot at that time. I went about an hour and a half into this lunar eclipse, and you can see here it's fully eclipsed at this time. And I don't know if we should be using the word eclipse now after doing the word etymology of the word. We probably just need to be calling it obscured, because obscured seems to be more of the a better definition than eclipse would be. Again, this is the sun here at the same time, same day, at the same location. Here at the imaginary horizon, it's showing the sun is approximately, if you look at the altitude up there at the right underneath the date and time, it shows that it's negative 1.56 degrees. So that's very close to the horizon there. This is just a zoomed out shot of it. Again, you can see where the sun is at the imaginary horizon there. We go to this next shot. Again, I added in the atmosphere and I added in the earth to it. As you can see here, the light of the sun is already appearing here as it was in the video. Now this is at 7 o'clock. In his video, he mentioned 6:58. 7:04 and 7:08. So even at the 7:08, he was showing the sun appearing from the east, and still the moon had something obscuring it from the top there. And so I just find that physically impossible, the way he tried to explain it. Again, he thought, because he thought it would, the shadow would be coming up from the bottom up, but it actually starts from the top down. Again, this is a shot of both the sun and moon here. This is imaginary blue line there is for your horizon. Again, you can see the moon is right there above, and then the sun is showing just a little bit below on this particular, and again, this is at 7 a.m. We add in the atmosphere and the land, then we can see that the moon is above that horizon at 7 o'clock, and the sun has appeared from the east, because you can see the light. Even this this app that I've got loaded on my computer here to my Windows, you can actually see the light go all the way across to the moon there. So it's pretty neat app to use. So guys, an eclipse is not an eclipse based on the etymology, the history of the word. I'd be more willing to say it's just darkened or obscured. So an obscuring of the moon instead of an eclipse. I call it a lunar eclipse. I'd call it a lunar obscuring. But based on what I've seen and what I've researched over the last couple days, there's definitely no way physically that I could see where the light of the sun could travel underneath the earth and put a shadow on the moon from the top down, but yet still be lighting up the moon fully or going full at that time above that. So anyway, it's just kind of some funny thinking, and just do your own. Be a critical thinker. Just go into it, have an open mind, go into it, and take a look at it. And hope everybody has a great day.